Right. All right. We plugged in. Hold on, I gotta starting to get a little bit chillier. Gotta throw in an extra layer. Hi, how you doing? Oh, thank you. See you later. Bye. Love you. Have a good night. Thank you. All right, y'all. My fault. Ugh. Share this live. Like I always say, share this live. Okay. All right, y'all. Just wait for a second there. We are about to start back with reading Locking Up Our Own by James Forman Jr. This is the fifth book that we have been reading as part of the ongoing teaching and Say Their Name Square. Somebody from the community just brought me a coffee out, which is perfect. This is exactly what I need to hop back into this. Again, we want people to... Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Again, we want people to understand what we are trying to do is we want to be reading these books, reading this literature, and cross-referencing it to the things that we're facing as a community today. So this community in Rockford, Illinois specifically. So we are reading right now Locking Up Our Own by James Forman Jr., Crime and Punishment in Black America. This book is speaking about using D.C. as a microcosm or using D.C. as the main point of emphasis. For an example, they are showing how black communities were clamoring for let me turn this mic down a little bit, how black communities were clamoring. My fault, y'all, my fault. They show how black communities were clamoring for some of these things to be done. It shows how black communities have been ravished by drug use being rampant and drug addiction being rampant, and have been ravished by gun violence, and have been ravished also by deindustrialization in the 20th century, which greatly affected black people in a way that was more substantial than it did other minorities and other groups in America. And so it just speaks about the nature of the community, the black communities in America. It touches on a little bit of all the different communities, but DC is the main one that it is speaking on and that it is using. And it speaks about the integration of the black police force. It speaks about the integration of black officials in public offices. And it speaks about these black officials getting into offices and then doing things and then enacting what they believe was the desire of their black constituents, and that was in enforcing stricter gun laws and enforcing stricter drug laws, and it just speaks about where those things have gotten us now. And so we need to be in a place where we don't repeat the same things and hope for different results. And so when you speak to somebody and their answer to the way to solve the issue that we're dealing with is more police officers, or is more black people as police officers, or it is integrating the police force deeper. We want to point them to the fact that that is something that has been done and it has been proven to not have worked. So I'm going to pick up where we left off at on here. But before I do that, again, I just want to let you know the things, what it is exactly that we are doing out here. So we have been out here for occupying City Hall for the past 185 days since an unarmed black man was shot in Rockford, Illinois on October 2nd, 2020. On October 2nd, 2020, a young unarmed black man was shot in Rockford, Illinois by a Rockford police officer. On October 3rd, 2020, we came out to City Hall, and we've been out here at City Hall ever since then trying to bring awareness to these issues. Okay, so another thing that we want to also bring awareness to is that on January 5th, Denzel Duvant was assaulted by the Rockford Police Department. He was January 5th, 2021. Denzel Duvant was assaulted by the Rockford Police Department. He was beat while he was handcuffed. It's a picture of it that we have on our May 30th Alliance Facebook page. You can see that. We keep a picture of it out here in front of City Hall to let people know what it is that we're out here for. And so within that guise of those 180 plus days that we've been here, beginning April 1st, we began doing it, what we are calling an ongoing teach-in at Say Their Name Square. This is this area right here, right outside of City Hall, on the corners of 2nd Street and East State Street, 1st Street and East State Street, and Walnut and East State Street. We have entitled Say Their Name Square. We have memorials up at these light poles and on all of these different corners for people who have been murdered by the Rockford Police Department, people who have been murdered while in the custody of the Rockford Police Department, and people who have been murdered while in the custody of the Winnebago County Jail, and of a young man, Jovan Fresco, who was murdered by the Metro Enforcement Agency. And so in the midst of doing the ongoing teaching at Say Their Name Square, what we are doing is every 24 hours, we are reading a different piece of literature that relates to police terrorism or mass incarceration for this first week. For the second week, we will read a different piece of literature that relates to racial injustice. For the third week, we will read a different piece of literature that relates to organizing and demonstrating, so that way we can try to find solutions to racial injustice and police terrorism and mass incarceration. And then in the fourth week, we are going to focus on events that have taken place in Rockford, the history of Rockford, Illinois, the history of Winnebago County, Illinois, the history of the state of Illinois. And so what we want to do once we get to that fourth week is we want to take and apply the things that we have learned from the first week with police terrorism and mass incarceration, the things that we have learned in the second week about racial injustice, the things we have learned in the third week about demonstrating and organizing. And we want to use all of those things and cross-reference all of that information and figure out how do we deal with the issues that we are facing in Rockford, Illinois. And then we want to, after we do those 4 weeks, we go through those 4 weeks collectively together, whether you watching at home, whether you coming in person, whether you watching videos retroactively, whether this is something that we done turn into audio files and now maybe you listening to it on SoundCloud or some other type of streaming apparatus. What we want to do is get ready to go into May and into the spring with our protests anchored in education, with our demonstrations anchored in information, and with our direct actions anchored in empathy and anchored in understanding. And so, day 1, we read The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Era of Colorblindness. Day 2, we read The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. Day 3, we read They Can't Kill Us All by Wesley Lowery. Day 4, we read Asada, an autobiography. And now day 5, we are reading Locking Up Our Own by James Forman Jr. And just a preview, tomorrow, day 6, we will be reading Rise of the Warrior Cop, the Militarization of America's Police Forces. Okay, and so and for again another preview, we had to do a switch. We had one book that was for day 7, but some things complicated that. This will be our day 7 book, the 7th day book, Until We Reckon, which speaks on violence, massacre. which speaks on violence, mass incarceration, and a road to repair. This book speaks specifically about violent offenders and how do we find a way to find justice outside of this penal system for violent offenders, which is a contrast to what we began the week with, which is the new Jim Crow, which is about finding justice outside of the penal system for non-violent offenders. And so this is the past. This is the 7 days here. Okay, I want people to understand that. And so when you see these videos of police officers coming here in the middle of the night, when you see as we go forward here in the future, and you watch how the media is used to in manipulative manners by city officials and by police officials to try to make it seem as if we are up to some type of nefarious deeds. I want you to be able to refer back to these videos, refer back to this moment in time when we were down here and educating, when we were down here and we were communicating and having dialogue and explaining these things. If you want to allow yourself to be ignorant so you can be mad about people protesting and people demonstrating, then that is something that is upon you, that you take on yourself. But what we are doing out here is we are trying to inform people why these things must happen. We are trying to inform people why we must organize and inform people why we must mobilize, and we are trying to meet people where they are at. Every Saturday and Sunday we will have breakfast down here from 9 a.m. to noon. We'll have donuts down here. We want people to come and participate and read along with us. We want people to come down here and listen. We want people to come down here. We're going to have multiple copies of these books. We're going to build the May 30th Alliance Community Library. We want people to come down here and get multiple copies of these books and read these books, and then go back and watch these group conversations that we have. Again, at 5 o'clock every day, we have a group conversation on the book that we read. At 5 o'clock tomorrow, we will have a group conversation on Rise of the Warrior Cop, the militarization of America's police forces. So I just want us to all be on the same page with everything that it is that we doing here. All right, y'all. So we are going to finish up Locking Up Our Own, Crime and Punishment in Black America by James Forman Jr. Again, I want people to understand. I think Asada, we didn't finish Asada. I can't remember exactly what page we left off on. I'm gonna figure out which one it was, and I'm probably gonna try to refinish that after we finish Stocking Up Our Own, because we definitely gonna get through that today. So every 24 hours, come down here and read. We don't care what this is not no test. This is not no type of judgment zone. We want people to come out here and participate. We want people to come out here and hear this message in person. We want people to come out here and interact and engage and have dialogue around these things. That's going to be the only way that we can find solutions collectively. All right. Okay. Dang. Fish. Man, I don't know if we remember. Okay. King James said since slavery. He's on page 2. Look at me. I'm sorry, y'all. My fault, y'all. I'm trying to figure out what page we was on. My fault, y'all. They must have finished this first. They must have finished this chapter. I think they finished this chapter. If they didn't, I think they finished this chapter. So I'm gonna go to the epilogue. What? They couldn't have finished this chapter. Okay. I'm gonna start at page 200. I don't think they finished this chapter. What techniques do police use to obtain such consent? Often, as with Miss Dossier, just asking is good enough, especially because most people don't know that they can refuse. For drivers who are more reluctant, officers are trained in how to wrangle consent, and the best are very good at it. A core tactic is to blur the distinction between commands that a driver must obey, such as providing a license and registration or stepping out of the car, and requests that he may decline, such as giving permission to search. Many people don't know the difference, and having acceded to a series of commands, they are primed to assume that the final, crucial request to search is also one they must obey. Finally, if the driver is adamant in refusing consent, there is always the fallback option: search anyway and later claim that you got consent. Although Holder was remarkably forthright in outlining his plan, there were two aspects he failed to emphasize. First, He didn't discuss the immense volume of innocent people who would have to be stopped in order to obtain a sizable number of guns. This volume of stops is necessary because the overwhelming majority of cars the police stop and search won't contain guns. Results vary from study to study, but most conclude that somewhere from 1 out of 20 to 1 out of 100 searches of cars will recover weapons. Although not widely shared with the general public, the fact that hit rates for firearms are so low was well known in the police academies where officers learn to conduct pretext stops. As a popular textbook explained, remember, you need a lot of contacts to find the relatively few felony offenders you're most interested in. To get the volume you want, you're going to have to intensively enforce the traffic laws. You may need to call upon more trivial violations or public safety considerations, like having a tail light out or a cracked windshield, changing lanes without signaling, impeding traffic, following too closely, failing to... Oh, no, okay. Okay, so what we want to be doing is we want to be dissecting these things and cross-referencing how these things directly affect us in the struggle that we waging in Rockford, Illinois right now. And so when we read about here, when we read about the manner in which that they're going about these, let them go by. So when we read here about pretext stops, what we have to be being cognizant of is the fact that we live in a city in which they love to parade crime statistics, and in the midst of parading those crime statistics, they also love to let you know how many guns they got off the streets. And so this right here is giving you an introspective look into what that means when they say they got these guns off the streets, and to what that means. The reason that in a city like Rockford, Illinois, black people are 3 times as likely to be pulled over than white people is because they are out here using pretext stops, stopping black people for driving 3 miles over the speed limit, or stopping black people for having a tail light out, not because they think that they're upholding the safety of the traffic or of traffic laws, but because they think that they can find drugs or guns in these cars. Primarily, as what we're speaking about right here, is guns. So when you have a city like Rockford, Illinois, where the state's attorney is boasting about trying to create a gun court, you need to understand that that's going to then incentivize these Gestapo police officers to use these third world tactics to harass black people and pull black people over and strip them of any constitutional right just to search their car in hopes that they find a gun. The questions we should be asking is not how many guns that they got off the streets. You know, if you really care about crime and you really care and you really believe in policing, you should be asking how many guns connected to crimes or to murders have been taken off the streets. Or are you just going around getting random guns that aren't even connected to any type of violent actions happening? That could be a waste of resources getting those guns out. What if you getting guns from people who are having those weapons for protection, are not the violent offenders? Again, that's if you buy into that system, if you buy into that train of thought. And that's just to say that no matter which way that you look at it, pretext stops are not inhibitors to crime. Nobody is out here. No more people are not alive because of pretext stops. The streets are not safer because of pretext stops. So when you hear people say that they were pulled over for DWB, for driving while black, when you hear people say that they were racially profiled, you need to look deeper into not only what those things mean overtly, but what they mean covertly, and not only what they mean for that one individual, but what they mean for the collectives of people who have to deal with those type of things. Even the Kansas City and Indianapolis studies showed how seldom guns were actually found. In Kansas City, police in the target area seized guns in only 3.5% of traffic stops, while in Indianapolis, they found guns in less than 1% of traffic stops. The other aspect of Operation Ceasefire that Holder failed to mention was that, although relatively few cars will contain guns, many more will contain evidence of minor crimes such as possession of marijuana. Police are sworn to enforce the law, and although it is theoretically possible to imagine a pretext stop program in which police seize guns but ignore other minor offenses, it would be extremely difficult to exercise. Among other obstacles, officers would need to be trained on which minor offenses to overlook and few police chiefs would be eager to attend a public oversight hearing in which they were forced to explain where they got the authority to decide the laws that mattered. As a result, pretext stop regimes invariably operate as ceasefire did. Officers may start out with a particular goal, such as seizing illegal guns, but if they uncover other illegal items, even less serious ones, they typically arrest. But not everybody was at equal risk. In D.C., one police district was officially exempt from Operation Ceasefire. The city's 2nd District, which included middle and upper middle class white neighborhoods such as Georgetown, Foggy Bottom, and Woodley Park. The exemption was intentional. The 2nd District, Holder explained, had almost no gun crime, so there was no need for pretext stops there. Holder's explanation was entirely rational. In 1993, 2 years before Operation Ceasefire went into effect, there were 399 homicides in Washington, D.C. Only 2 of them were in Ward 3, which largely covers the 2nd District. Despite the fact that this ward contained more than 13% of the city's population, in one respect, though, the exemption of the 2nd District was problematic. By concentrating pretext policing in the area where gun crime was highest, Operation Ceasefire created unwarranted disparities in other areas, such as drug enforcement. Drivers in majority black neighborhoods were no more likely to possess drugs than were drivers in majority white neighborhoods, but under Holder's plan, they were more likely to be stopped, searched, and arrested. These drivers, including Mrs. Dazier, were the collateral damage from Operation Ceasefire's response to such gun violence. Okay. And so that brings us to the conversation that I've tried to repeatedly have in the times that I've addressed the things that's going on out here. But that brings us to the place of there is statistical proof and historical precedence that says that says that in historical precedence that says that white people do black people and white people use drugs and sell drugs at very similar percentages and rates. That white people and black people commit violent crimes at very similar percentages of rates. But the difference in the reason why black people have been stigmatized, or black people have been stuck with the characterization as being criminals and criminalized, and the reason that black people make up more of the population of the prison industrial complex is because police officers are stationed more in black neighborhoods, because police officers are incentivized and programmed more to go after black people and brown people in black and brown neighborhoods. And so that's how you end up having more of those people inside of this institution. And then once you have more people inside of this institution, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where now people on the outside looking in think, well, black people are more prone to crime, or black people are more prone to violence. And so we have to understand where the origins of some of these things took place, so that way we can understand how to rid ourselves of these things. Hey, what page did you leave off on? Oh, I thought it was her. Oh, what page did she live off on? Oh, damn. I'm happy that you came. Okay, 208. Had 13 at the top?
Yeah.
Oh, I had a cartoon at the top. 208. Okay, I knew that. We knew that.
Top tier. Damn. You want to eat right now, or you want to keep going?
Damn. I feel like Terry don't like when we stop.
Yeah, but you know.
Yeah, that's. Hey, Bobby, you want to read? No, I'm just playing. It's okay. I was just playing. It's good seeing you. Bye, love you.
Be careful driving. Be careful.
Yeah, we got to get rid of cars. We got to get rid of these cars.
I gotta tell you, my life is so crazy.
Yeah.
Damn, something happened to me.
Insulated pocket. Man, don't light the chair too much, man. Don't get too attached to the chair. We're on page 208. Oh, yeah, we don't really got that many pages left either. And these next, I think our next books is. Okay, I want to shout out the black woman at the Goodwill that paid for this chair. No, I don't want to shout out the black woman at the. All right, I'm gonna eat real quick, and then I'm gonna tap right back in. All right, real quick and right back in. And I think because of I'm not gonna use any type of in homonym words to describe this person, but because of an individual, we gotta wait to get some of these things charged up. I'm not gonna tell you what type of individual he is.